Hi, this is Lori Niles at Violinist.com, and I wanted to talk to you about some of the common problems and habits that you can form, bad habits that is, when you're a beginner violinist, and how to avoid the bad and promote the good. So the first good habit you can have, or bad habit, is your posture. It's really important that you sit upright or stand upright when you're playing the violin, because you don't want to be like this. I call this like a violin beard because it looks like, that's no good. So basically what you want is you want your violin to be pretty parallel to the floor. It's going to tilt a little bit this way, but not a lot. And then the scroll is going to be straight out. It's not going to be up. This is no good also. And it's also not going to be down like this. So here is one way to think of it when you put the violin up to your shoulder. So you can take a breath in, sit up straight. So let's say you're just sitting like this. Take a breath, sit up straight, violin up, and then you're going to just turn your head. Your head's very heavy. Just rest it on the chin rest and relax into an upright position. And you should be able to not use your hands, but you shouldn't have to clench your shoulder to do that. And you also, so you don't want to be holding too hard. You don't want to be so straight that you're doing a back bend and that you have a lot of tension. So a relaxed, upright position where you're using the weight of your head to hold up the violin at that point. Okay, so the next habit that I'd like you to try to avoid is grabbing the neck of the violin. It's its neck. You don't want to strangle the violin, but that's not really the reason. The reason is it's just too much tension for your hand. So one way to see if you are grabbing your violin is, are you bending your thumb? It doesn't always mean that you are, but if you're bending your thumb like this, and especially if your thumb's turning white, you're grabbing the violin, you're squeezing that neck pretty hard. And this is a very tense position to play the violin in. It's putting a lot of tension in the hand, and it's keeping it from being able to move. So you basically want a straight thumb. The other place where you're going to touch the violin is this bass joint. If you feel at the base of your index finger, there is a little bone that sticks out there. That is where the violin is going to rest on the other side when it rests there. So it's going to look like this to you, a little bit. And you have a balance between holding this a little bit on the shoulder, cradling it on the shoulder, and then in the hand, but without this. Now, another symptom of holding the violin instead of cradling it is this. You see my wrist? I call that a pancake wrist. It's completely collapsed, and you see this in students sometimes. It really inhibits your movement of your fingers. So what you want is a straight wrist, basically, because this gives you maximum mobility. You don't want it to be like this. You also don't want it to be like this. This can be a problem too. So a straight wrist is what we want. So in essence, we don't want to be grabbing the violin with the left hand. Let's talk about the right hand, the bow hand. So chances are, when you first started playing, or if you're first starting, your teacher's going to tell you where to put your fingers and your thumb. It's going to look something like this. But something that you need to know is that this is not really a bow grip. You're going to put your fingers in a certain place, but they have to be very, very flexible. They're going to look, your bow hold is going to look very different when I'm at the tip of the bow. Look at everything sort of straightens out, including, my wrist is up, everything's straightened out. Then I go up, and my fingers are all bent. So the one thing that you need to know is that no finger should be locked in position. And the place where you're most likely to see this locked inflexibility is the thumb. Very often, for some reason, people develop just a locked thumb. And so they're holding their bow. Everything kind of looks right. But then you look in here at the thumb, It's locked straight, and that is really going to inhibit the movement of your hand and your fingers. So you don't want that locked. You don't want any finger locked in position. So watch for your fingers not locking. One way you can try to develop more flexibility in your fingers is practice with a pencil. So you just hold the pencil like a bow, and you just do all kinds of things with this pencil to try to see if you can move your fingers without dropping the bow. You can go up and down, you can go side to side, you can pivot on your thumb, you can move your wrist around and, see if you don't drop the bow or the pencil. You can try it with your bow too, but you can start with a pencil. You can do this while you're watching TV or doing something else kind of passively, and it really helps. So flexibility in your bow hand. We don't want inflexibility. Okay, so some other things for when you are a beginning student. You need to take care of your violin. Make sure you're doing those little detail things, like when you get out your bow, you're going to wind it up. When you put it away, please be sure to unwind it, especially if it's a wooden bow, because it can get warped. Another thing is to rosin it each time that you play. So you're going to just give it maybe 10 swipes of rosin. You also want to know that you should wipe off the violin every single time you use it. I'm not kidding about that. There'll be a buildup of rosin. If you have a warm day, that rosin might start to sort of melt onto the surface, fuse a little bit with the varnish. It gets very difficult, if not impossible, to get off, and then you'll have to go to a violin maker who will say, well, weren't you cleaning off your violin? I know this from experience. That happened to me when I was younger. So wipe it off every single time. Know that you're going to be changing the strings on your violin every 3 to 6 months, and also rehairing the bow every 6 months or so. So just that, know that you have to do that. Sometimes I'll encounter somebody who just actually didn't really know that you're supposed to rehair your bow or change the strings. So know that that is something that you need to do, and it really helps your instrument to stay sounding good. And when you put your instrument away every day, put it back in the case. Don't leave it out. It's tempting because maybe like, oh, I'll just play it more if I leave it out. I wouldn't do that. It's a pretty delicate instrument, and all you need is for someone to sit on it, or the dog to get to it, or the curious child or something. So keep it in the case. That's the best policy. Another thing to know about when you start taking violin lessons, be sure that you get a teacher that you trust and do what that teacher says. Don't look for shortcuts. I'm not saying that you can't ask questions of your teacher and ask why you're doing things, but then go ahead and do those things that your teacher suggests, because that is going to be the fastest way that you can learn the violin. And then, last but not least, don't expect progress without practice. So you're going to have to practice, and practice every day. That is the only way you can make good progress. Good steady progress is daily practice. Daily practice works better than practicing one day for 5 hours. Not that you won't make progress that way, but the most steady progress happens from daily practice and a kind of a devotion. It's a virtuous cycle, because you start getting better, you start enjoying it, you start looking forward to practicing and to playing all the time. So those are some of my suggestions for beginners of how to avoid bad habits and to get into good habits right from the start. So happy violin playing. Come visit us on Violinist.com and join our YouTube channel, Violinist.com. Thanks.